Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of Intentional Talk. It's presented to you by Toro, it's Millar, it's Rose, and it is a special Mets edition of Intentional Talk with Doc Gooden and Ron Darling from the '86 World Series champs. And guys, we are surprising another doctor on the front line today. Doc Gooden, you excited about that?
Oh, that's great. No, to me, those are the real heroes. Those are one does a good job to make us live our dream. We get all the headlines, but those guys do all the hard work.
Well, Chris and Kevin, I just want to say thank you so much for honoring these people on the front lines. I've got a lot of friends in New York that are fighting, and kudos to you guys for honoring these folks.
We can't wait to have it happen. So you guys, we're going to tuck you away. We're going to put you in our special room. Don't go anywhere because we're going to surprise our doctor in just a couple of minutes. It is another special edition of Intentional Talk as we welcome in Dr. Doug Bails. He is the Chief of Medicine at Bellevue Hospital in New York and also works at NYU Hospital as well. And Dr. Bails, first of all, thank you so much for everything that you and your entire staff and all the orderlies and the people that, you know, work in the kitchen and the cleaning staff and everybody that's doing up there in New York City. How are you holding up these days?
You know, Chris, it's interesting because it's been a real ride. It has been nothing like, we've never seen anything like this. And it's very sobering, but at the same time, it's very gratifying because New York has been overrun with COVID. And I could just give you like a little perspective of our hospital at Bellevue. You know, we're affiliated with NYU, and we're also the tertiary care facility for many other New York City hospitals. We've always been in the forefront of any infection of the day, from yellow fever to TB to AIDS to Ebola, which was a few years ago. And so when this came around, we knew we needed to be ready and stay in front of that wave. And it has been a tidal wave, or to use a sports cliche, the granddaddy of them all, because I think on March 9th we had no patients, and then we had 2 weeks later we had 85. Then in 2 weeks further we had 300, and then Easter Day, we had 400 patients admitted to our hospital.
Well, I'm curious. We hear the numbers. They're startling.
Yeah.
We don't hear as many of the great stories. And so we try to do that on Intentional Talk. Is there one of a patient that has recovered where everybody has lined the halls and given a huge ovation, or something that's really touched you emotionally?
Yeah, I can give you two examples. There was a young mom admitted to the hospital, pregnant, 9 months pregnant, who ended up in our ICU. The baby ended up being negative, and she was discharged from the hospital. She came out with the rousing applause. And that kind of a story is really keeps you going. Another example, we have a very good friend of mine who is one of the nurse administrators in our hospital, was intubated with COVID and was discharged and was able to be clapped out. He's a huge, his name is Derek Josie. I can mention his name. He's a big Yankee fan. So we all stick together, the baseball fans, and we talk about it every day. So it really is exciting to see that, to be able to see employees and other people leave the hospital. And now we're playing songs whenever they leave the hospital, just to keep the spirit up. And that's a really nice thing.
Doc, that's awesome. Now, I do want to switch gears a tick right now. Let's start talking baseball. Let's start talking your favorite team, which is the New York Mets and not the Yankees. And let's talk about the 1986 year. What's your favorite moment from that year?
My favorite moment, there's so many, Kevin. I would say my favorite moment of all was really a couple at bats there. It was that Ray Knight at bat in Game 6. Ray Knight is up, then Kevin Mitchell after him, and then of course the Mookie Wilson at bat. That stretch there, I was a first-year medical student. I will never forget the tension in that building. Oh my God, it was just watching that game was unbelievable. I want to show you something in my office, guys. Ready?
Yes.
I'm going to pan around.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are Shea Stadium chairs. These are authentic cup holders. We got the whole thing going on here. Yep.
That is fantastic.
Thank you. You got to have hobbies.
Man.
Well, Doctor, we love it that you're such a huge fan of the Mets. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind saying hello to a friend of ours. He started games 1, 4, and 7 for that '86 World Series championship team. Let's bring in Ron Darling.
Hi, Ronnie. How are you?
Hi, Dr. Bales.
Nice
I
to
love
meet you.
being
I
on
met you
IT.
already in an airport.
Oh, we did. But to
Yeah.
be on IT and to talk to you, I want to thank you and everyone on First Avenue in Manhattan at Bellevue for all the work that you're doing. You know, I have all my friends are there, and they tell me how important you people have the role you've played in somehow keeping the city together. So thank you.
I cannot tell you how much that means, Ron. Again, it's been at times very sad, but it's also very uplifting to see the responses, right? We have doctors, I really so thankful. We have doctors that are doing blood draws and acting as interns and doing scheduling, and we have people doing all the jobs they didn't do before, just so that we could be whole and to activate. We have 5 times the number of ICU patients, and I know NYU and Bellevue both have that, and to hear that from you is really, really appreciated.
Hey, Doc, I wanted to ask you, in your private moments, you're probably just exhausted, but in your private moments with your own family, must get emotional, right? At the end of the day when you've seen so much.
Yeah, Ron, you know, it's interesting. It makes me, I think, almost appreciate, I know this sounds like a weird comparison, but someone that's coming home from a war or from some kind of an activation like that, because I feel a little bit like there is a shell around me that I've got to break out of. And sometimes you feel like, you know, your friends and relatives don't fully understand. So that definitely happens. And it takes a while to break out of that. And I think that's partially protective, probably, because when you're in there, you are completely consumed. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Bails, this has kind of turned into our MD hour, if you will. There's another doctor we would like to bring in right now. Paging Dr. Gooden.
What's up, Doc?
Hey, how you doing, Doc? Hey, on this show, you can't call me Doc. You're the real Doc. I'm just a
Thank you
character.
so much. No, listen, I'm a big fan. Hey, Doc, I actually probably should show this. I have a fish with your name on it over there.
Oh,
Oh, yes.
We have
fish
blue
is
and orange
actually
fish.
named Doc.
Yeah, one of them is Dwight Gooden. The other one is Keith Hernandez, and I have a Jake DeGrom also. They're all blue and orange.
Okay. Hey, good.
Sorry, Ron.
That's
who
all.
who knew all those guys were sleeping with the fishes?
Can I ask one
nice.
question, Doctor?
Yes.
My favorite board game ever was Operation. Were you always good at that board game?
I was terrible at that. That's why I'm in internal medicine and not a surgeon. I was terrible.
All right. So, Dr. Bails, you have that. Why don't you show Dwight and Ron that collection of, you got bobbleheads, you got chairs. Do you have anything of these two guys hanging on the walls or anything?
I absolutely do. There. Hold on. There's my Shea Stadium seats.
Right.
I got the bobbles over there.
That's pretty
Oh,
cool.
great.
I have a
Wow.
Ron Darling bobblehead. I don't have a Ron Darling bobblehead
But,
right now, but a lot of fun stuff. And, you know, listen, if you're going to work hard, you might as well also be able to show off your habits. And by the way, I could never have this in my home. It wouldn't be allowed, the Met seats.
Pretty
So
cool
I do
stuff you
here.
got, Dr. Bowles. I like that. Actually, once this stuff gets settled, and thanks, you guys in the front line are doing such a great job. Once the season gets started, I'd like to invite you to a game as one of my guests.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much.
I love
And
that.
and make sure you come up with the booth before the game. You can meet the 3 knuckleheads up in the booth. We'd love to have you too, Dr. Bales.
Oh, well, thank you. I would love that. I really appreciate that. And listen, this is not, I'm kind of humble about this. I mean, you know, I think everyone out there listening should really appreciate their nurses who are in the front line of this, and the other staff too. It's not just physicians, and nurses are key here. They're in the front line. And it's been, you know, as I said, it's been a real challenge. We had at one point 120 ICU patients where we usually just have 12. So when you see healthcare workers, really tell them you appreciate them. 7 o'clock every day in New York City, they do a clap for the physicians and nurses. That's a nice thing also. It makes people feel really appreciated.
You know, Dr. Bales, I'm hoping that when we come out of this and we have, I don't know, maybe our America 2.0 moment, that we will appreciate those that have been the most valuable throughout all of this and not forget that.
I appreciate you saying that. It's tough sometimes because everyone is home. Everyone is socially distancing and home and quarantining. but a lot of the healthcare workers are coming in every day. And so you see all these, the social media saying, what do you do when you're bored? And meanwhile, the doctors and nurses are completely consumed. So it's really appreciated.
Well, Doctor, 30 seconds left before you go. I'm going to put you on the spot. You are Davy Johnson in 1986. Dwight Gooden and Ron Darling are both on equal rest. You have one game to win. It's Game 7 of the World Series. Who you giving the ball to?
Oh, I can answer this question.
Did you see my stats in the '86 World Series? Ronnie's my answer, hands down.
I'm giving it to Dwight. Sorry, Ronnie, but
No.
I'm telling Ron to be ready.
Yeah, I'll be in the bullpen. Absolutely.
That's right. Because I remember I was at the game in 2015 where Harvey, we wanted to keep him in, but we really needed, at a certain point, he needed to come out. And so I'd be ready to bring you in, but I would start with Doc.
Okay, yes. Smart man. That's why he's a doctor.
That's right. I learned that in year 3 of medical school, I think.
There you go.
First of all, Ron Darling, Dwight Gooden, thank you so much for joining us today on Intentional Talk. Dr. Doug Bails, thank you for everything and your entire staff is doing up there in New York City. Believe me, it is appreciated from the bottom of our hearts. And please stay healthy out there, okay?
Thank you.
Dr. Bails.
Thank you. I just want to say one more thing. As doctors, people forget that doctors are sports fans too. So I would love to be coming home after a tough day to a baseball game, right? So just know it's a two-way street, and we appreciate you guys too.
All right. Thank you, Doctor.
Sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We will see you on Friday's edition of Intentional Talk, presented to you by Toro.